question. ACORN.
Yeah.
What is it? What does it do? And do acorns always grow?
Well, hopefully, yeah. Well, where trade unions have represented people in the workplace in the past, ACORN is what we call a community union. So what we aim to do is bring where trade unions have brought people in to fight against poor conditions in the workplace and low pay. We mobilise people in the community to stand up to rogue landlords, high rents, evictions, and campaign around things like poor local services. That could be anything from transport to the environment to free school meals, leisure services, and mainly, obviously, housing as well, as that's a massive problem across the country at the moment.
Round here, housing is a huge issue. We've got over there quite expensive owner-occupied houses. We've also got council places like the flats there and behind you, but we've also got a massive private rented sector. Probably a third of the population are living in private rented. Their conditions generally are not good, their security is limited, and they're often people that are quite fearful of many things. How do you empower and encourage people in the private rented sector?
That's a really good question. Yeah, I think one of the main things we try and do is a lot of door knocking. So we really believe in the principle of bringing the union to people rather than waiting for them to come to us. So we go out in areas which, in the past have been ignored. We knock on doors and we speak to people and we listen to what issues they're facing. That's not just the private rented sector. That's, that could be homeowners, leaseholders, council tenants. Anyone who's up for fighting for change. We'll go out, we'll speak to them, we'll find out what issues they have, and then we try and organise those people, give them tools to organise and come together and take direct action to solve those things.
And when you stick with the private rented for a moment, there are large numbers of people in the private rented sector. It's not just young people who've moved to London, it's much wider than that. They feel very insecure. Legislation is not very protective. So what can you do as a community union to protect and support them?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, obviously on the one hand, we do fight nationally to try and change that legislation through things like the Renters Reform Coalition. We work with groups across the country to push for improvements in the Renters Reform Bill and those kind of things to ban Section 21 no-fault evictions and that side of thing. But really what we focus on in a community union is using our strength in numbers to pressure people who actually have the power to make that change, to change their mind about things. So that could be, going to speak to a landlord and negotiate with him as a group of people, or my favourite example really is the eviction resistance work that we do. When one of our members is being evicted, is facing bailiffs coming around to turf them and their family out on the streets, we door knock the neighbours, we get the people in the local area to come together, link arms and physically resist those bailiffs. So, those are all ways that we can empower normal people to use what limited power they have in their personal lives, come together and create this collective power with which we can beat landlords, property developers, politicians, you name it.
And what are you picking up in this area? Because I know ACORN is fairly new to Islington, isn't it?
Yeah, I think Islington's a really interesting place to organise. I think there's often a bit of a misconception about Islington as,
just a bit, yes, yes.
as being this kind of nice London suburb where everything is great. And then when you go out and you speak to people, you knock doors, you realise that's obviously not the case. There's massive amounts of housing issues. A lot of the issues we're getting when we're door knocking around here is low quality housing, rents going up astronomically, people facing eviction, that kind of thing, which we see all over the country, but London I think is especially bad for that. So those have been the main issues in Islington, which is why we've been really eager to campaign here and really excited to have just launched our local group here as well.
In one sentence, what gives you hope?
Going out, knocking doors, meeting people who are ready to stand up, fight for the communities and stand up together to fight for change.
That's one sentence with lots of semicolons. Well done. Fredi, thank you.
Thanks so much for having me.